Welcome to our exploration of how caffeine influences strength and endurance training. Caffeine is the world's most popular pre-workout stimulant, but its effects are not uniform across different types of exercise. In this talk, we will compare the evidence for cardio and lifting so you can dose intelligently. We will look at how caffeine impacts the central nervous system, perceived exertion, pain, and metabolic processes, and how those impacts translate into performance for runners versus lifters. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of when caffeine can help, how much you should take, and what factors influence your response. Caffeine's popularity as a pre-workout raises a key question. Does it benefit endurance athletes more than strength athletes? This slide frames the debate. We will compare how runners and lifters respond, looking at evidence from studies on time trial performance and maximal strength. The goal is to help you determine whether your training style should influence your caffeine protocol. The answer is nuanced and depends on dose, timing, individual tolerance, and the specific demands of your sport. Endurance and strength activities place different demands on the body. Endurance relies on sustained output and pacing, while strength workouts demand short bursts of neurodrive and muscle power. Caffeine interacts with these demands in distinct ways. In endurance sports, its ability to reduce perceived effort and delay fatigue may play a larger role. In strength training, its impact on neural activation and pain perception could be more relevant. Understanding these physiological differences sets the stage for interpreting the research. Caffeine competes with adenosine for binding sites on receptors in the brain. By blocking these receptors, it reduces neural inhibition and increases alertness and arousal. This adenosine blockade is like releasing a brake on your central nervous system. Enhanced corticospinal communication and higher firing rates improve reaction times and neural drive. This mechanism explains why caffeine can feel like a neural turbo boost and why it has wide-ranging effects on both mental and physical tasks. Beyond blocking adenosine, caffeine heightens focus and lowers perceived exertion. It increases dopamine and norepinephrine release, which improves motivation and attention. Athletes experience decreased pain perception and effort during hard training, allowing them to push harder than they might otherwise. The improved neural drive recruits more motor units, contributing to explosive power. These combined effects mean caffeine can help you maintain intensity during challenging sessions, whether you are pounding the pavement or moving heavy weights. One interesting benefit of caffeine is its analgesic effect. Research shows it can reduce muscle soreness after exercise, sometimes up to 48% less soreness compared to placebo. In some studies, the pain relief from caffeine surpasses that of common over-the-counter analgesics. This reduction in discomfort may enable you to complete more repetitions or recover more quickly between sets. However, these effects vary widely between individuals, and caffeine should not replace proper recovery practices. Most studies find that a dose of 3 to 6 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight yields performance benefits. A minimal effective dose can be as low as 2 milligrams per kilogram, so starting low and working up makes sense. Very high doses around 9 milligrams per kilogram add side effects like jitteriness, gastrointestinal distress, and anxiety, without providing extra benefit. Timing also matters. Consuming caffeine about 60 minutes before exercise allows it to peak in your system as you begin your workout. Caffeine consistently reduces ratings of perceived exertion during prolonged efforts. When exercise feels easier, athletes can sustain higher outputs and delay the onset of fatigue. This reduction in effort perception plays a major role in improved completion times for time trials and marathons. If you are an endurance athlete looking for a way to make hard efforts feel more manageable, caffeine can be a valuable tool when used judiciously. Evidence shows that a moderate caffeine dose, around 4 to 6 milligrams per kilogram, improves cycling time trial performance. Meta-analyses have reported a moderate effect on completion time and mean power output. Lower doses between 1 and 3 milligrams per kilogram often do not show significant improvements in the same analyses. This suggests that endurance athletes may need to reach the mid-range of dosing to see noticeable gains. Caffeine helps maintain higher power or pace across long durations by enhancing both metabolic and psychological factors. It increases fat oxidation and spares glycogen, allowing you to rely less on stored carbohydrates. Psychologically, it reduces mental fatigue, helping you stay focused and motivated. These combined benefits are why evidence for endurance performance is robust across disciplines such as running, cycling, rowing, and interval training. Another aspect of endurance performance is pacing, maintaining a steady output over time. By improving alertness and central drive, caffeine helps you make better pacing decisions and maintain steady effort even as fatigue builds. Its effects accumulate over the duration of a long event, which is why they may matter more for endurance sports than for single lifts. Staying mentally sharp throughout a marathon or long ride can be just as important as physical strength. Overall, endurance athletes benefit reliably from caffeine, especially at doses between 3 and 6 milligrams per kilogram. Lower doses can still work for some individuals, while very high doses increase the risk of gastrointestinal upset and anxiety. Finding the sweet spot is key. You want enough to reduce perceived effort and support metabolic shifts without compromising recovery. Listening to your body and adjusting your intake accordingly will lead to better results. Caffeine's impact on maximal strength is smaller than its impact on endurance, but the effects are still noteworthy. Meta-analyses show a small effect size on maximal strength, with upper body lifts such as the bench press improving more consistently than lower body lifts. Even modest gains can be meaningful for competitive lifters and athletes trying to optimize every aspect of their performance. When properly dosed, caffeine may add those extra few kilograms to your lifts that make a difference on competition day. In addition to maximal strength, caffeine can increase muscular endurance and power. Studies show improvements in repetitions to failure and bar velocity across multiple sets. The heightened neural drive recruits more motor units and may enhance the rate of force development. These benefits are more apparent in high-volume sessions than in single 1-rep max attempts. If your training emphasizes repeated efforts, adding caffeine may give you an edge. Caffeine's analgesic effect also plays a role in strength training. By reducing muscle soreness and discomfort during and after lifting, caffeine might let you sustain higher training volume or intensity. However, the magnitude of these benefits is modest and varies widely between individuals. Some lifters feel markedly less pain, while others notice little difference. As always, proper technique, programming, and recovery are more important than relying on caffeine alone. It is important to acknowledge that not all studies show significant strength gains with caffeine. Lower body lifts and novice lifters may see little or no benefit. Outcomes depend on factors like exercise type, dose, training status, and genetic differences in caffeine metabolism. This variability means that you should test caffeine in your own training to see whether it provides a meaningful boost for your specific lifts and conditions. For lifting, context matters. Caffeine helps by boosting neural drive and reducing fatigue, but these effects are smaller than those seen in endurance. You will likely notice more benefit during repeated sets or high-volume sessions than during a single maximal lift. Remember that caffeine does not directly build muscle. The foundations of strength are still progressive overload, sound nutrition, and quality sleep. Use caffeine to complement these cornerstones, not to replace them. Endurance performance is limited by central fatigue and metabolic strain. Caffeine helps by reducing perceived effort and delaying central fatigue, which amplifies output over long durations. Because these benefits accumulate over time, endurance athletes experience more consistent improvements with caffeine. The longer the event, the more psychological and metabolic benefits build up, which explains why caffeine's effects are often stronger in endurance than in strength contexts. This slide highlights the difference between central and peripheral factors. Endurance relies heavily on central nervous system drive and pacing, both of which caffeine enhances. Strength outcomes depend more on neuromuscular skill, motor unit recruitment, and muscle fiber type, where caffeine's central effects may play a lesser role. Understanding these different demands helps explain why caffeine has a larger impact on endurance performance than on short maximal lifts. Individual differences play a big role in how caffeine affects strength. Genetic variations, habitual caffeine intake, and training status can all modulate the response. Some lifters build tolerance quickly, reducing the stimulant effect. Others may need moderate doses or specific timing to feel any benefit. Because of this variability, experiment with different doses and timing strategies to find what works best for you. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. A safe and effective way to approach caffeine is to start with a dose of about 1 to 2 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. This allows you to gauge tolerance and response. Gradually work up to the typical range of 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram as needed. Avoid pushing toward 9 milligrams per kilogram, as side effects increase sharply beyond that point with little added benefit. Always remember to consider total caffeine intake from all sources. To put dosing in context, consider a few examples. At 3 milligrams per kilogram, a 60 kilogram athlete would take roughly 180 milligrams of caffeine. At 6 milligrams per kilogram, they would take 360 milligrams. An 80 kilogram person would take between 240 and 480 milligrams. A 100 kilogram athlete would range from 300 to 600 milligrams. These examples show how body weight influences total caffeine amount. Always adjust for tolerance and avoid stacking caffeine from multiple products. Take caffeine about 30 to 60 minutes before training to allow it to peak in your bloodstream. Avoid late-day caffeine if it interferes with sleep or causes jitters. Pay attention to your body, gastrointestinal discomfort, anxiety, or a racing heart signal that your dose may be too high. Fine-tune the timing and amount to match your schedule and sensitivity. Good side effect management ensures that caffeine helps rather than hinders your performance. Endurance athletes generally favor 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram to maximize reductions in perceived exertion and sustained output. Strength athletes may benefit at the lower end of that range or with repeated smaller doses. For long training sessions, split dosing or combining caffeine with carbohydrates can extend the effect. Tailor the dose and timing to the specific demands of your session. Higher for long runs or rides, lower or split for lifting. There are several myths about caffeine in lifting. One myth is that caffeine directly builds muscle. The reality is that caffeine enhances neural drive and reduces pain perception, but cannot replace progressive overload, proper nutrition, or recovery. Another myth is that more caffeine always equals more strength. In fact, benefits plateau and side effects increase beyond about 6 milligrams per kilogram. A third myth is that caffeine is useless for lifters. In truth, it can aid muscular endurance, power, and pain tolerance when dosed intelligently. Understanding these facts helps you use caffeine wisely. Use caffeine on hard training days where extra focus and fatigue resistance are needed. For endurance events, moderate doses improve time trial performance and sustain output over long distances. For strength training, reserve caffeine for high-volume sessions or days when you need extra drive. Think of caffeine as a tool to enhance specific workouts rather than as a daily necessity. There are times when you should skip or adjust your caffeine intake. If you experience jitters, anxiety, gastrointestinal upset, or sleep disruption, it is best to reduce the dose or avoid caffeine altogether. Scale back when training later in the day to protect sleep quality. Consider using non-stimulant strategies such as music, breathwork, or light warm-ups for lighter or technical sessions. Listening to your body helps you decide when caffeine is beneficial and when it is not. Genetics, tolerance, and hormonal factors influence how quickly you metabolize caffeine and how strongly it affects you. Individuals with anxiety, hypertension, or heart rhythm issues should use caffeine with caution. Pregnant or breastfeeding individuals should consult a healthcare professional before supplementing, because everyone responds differently. A personalized approach is essential. Don't assume that what works for someone else will work the same way for you. Caffeine is a powerful ergogenic aid for both endurance and strength training, but the magnitude of its benefits differs. Endurance athletes experience stronger and more consistent improvements, especially in time trial performance and sustained efforts. Strength and power benefits are real but smaller and depend on context, dose, and individual variability. Use caffeine as one component of a comprehensive training strategy that includes sound nutrition, sleep, and recovery. When applied thoughtfully, caffeine can elevate both cardio and lifting workouts. The key takeaway is that caffeine is not just for cardio. Lifters can benefit too. Dose by body weight, start low, and adjust your intake based on the session and your personal tolerance. Use caffeine to enhance training, not to compensate for poor sleep, nutrition, or programming. By approaching caffeine strategically, you can harness its ergogenic effects while minimizing downsides. Remember that your foundation should always be consistent training, good nutrition, and adequate recovery.